Welcome to the channel Faith, Fiction, and Folklore, where we try not to F things up, also called the Try F Podcast. And tonight we've got Gary and Jeremiah and Cody with us. Thank you all for being here. How are you guys doing?
Superb.
Doing great. Doing great.
Awesome.
Going with a different
So-
color vibe here.
Anyways, we're going to talk about, at this time, Valentine's Day and kind of the history of it, and do a deep dive on Valentine's Day, since yesterday was Valentine's Day.
Sweet. So on this episode 3 of the live stream, which video would you like me to start with first, Trevor? Do you want me to go in the order of the links, starting with the History Channel?
Go in the order of the links I sent you. So start with the History Channel one.
All right, great.
And this is just a basic overview from the History Channel's perspective.
Sweet. All righty, here we go. After the ad that I'm sure is going to show up after I hit play.
Oh, there's going to be 50 in this ad, in this video.
No, it's only a few minutes long.
For all its popularity, history doesn't give us any guarantees as to the origins
That's going to hit us with a copyright, just so you know, but oh well.
of Valentine's
Oh,
Day.
I didn't even think about that.
But we do know it contains vestiges of the early Christian
Sorry.
church in
No, you're
ancient
all right.
Rome. The association between mid-February and romance goes back to a pagan festival known as Lupercalia, likely honoring either Lupa, the she-wolf of Rome who suckled Romulus and Remus, or Faunus, their god of fertility.
Wasn't Rome such a delightful time? Just awesome.
Yes, it was.
The festivities began with an animal sacrifice. Then the ritualistic slapping of young women with strips of the animal's skin and blood to bestow fertility for the coming year. In the 5th century, perhaps in an effort to Christianize,
That's what I was thinking, but why though? We're going to sacrifice a
For a
goat?
second, I was like starting to groove to the music a little bit. It was like the slapping of young women with animals. I was like, oh my
Threw
god.
me off, yeah. Broke the trance a little bit. Wait, what? Yes, we're gonna sacrifice a goat and beat our women. Yay, Rome!
That's
the
funny.
pagan festival, Pope Gelasius declared February 14th as St. Valentine's Day. As for the real St. Valentine, there were reportedly several canonized by the Church. Legend has it that one St. Valentine, a defiant Roman priest, lived during the 3rd century AD under Emperor Claudius II. Claudius was an ambitious ruler. His battles required vast armies of men to abandon their young families for long periods of time, resulting in a military that was half-hearted and homesick. So determined was Claudius to stop love from sapping the will of his armies, he banned marriages altogether.
Oh, he was
Father
a gay, for
Valentine
sure.
So, Pope bans marriages. Well, I thought Francis was bad.
Did it say the Pope banned marriages or Emperor?
I might have misheard that. Hopefully it was the Emperor, because I thought he said the Pope. It was Claudius II, whoever that was.
Yeah, that's Emperor. That's the Emperor of Rome.
well,
not
never
Pope.
mind. I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
I heard Pope, so never mind. Ignore me, guys.
together. Father Valentine thought the ban unjust and defied the emperor,
yeah, you're right.
continuing to marry young lovers in secret. The emperor eventually caught on to the priest's actions, arrested him, and sentenced him to death. It is believed that young couples he had secretly wed would visit his cell, passing him flowers and notes through the bars as symbols of their gratitude. The story continues that the condemned Father Valentine fell in love with his jailer's daughter. On February 14th, the day he was executed, it is said he passed the young girl a note. It was signed, "From your Valentine." A tradition was born. Cupid,
Well, that's really depressing.
Sounds like BS.
It does sound a
I
little
think the
romantic.
From Your Valentine thing, yeah, I think that part's kind of made up whole cloth. But the idea that a priest would be assisting in, helping Roman soldiers to marry, the women that they love in secret because a decree came down from the emperor saying, no, you have to be a fighting man only. You can never get married. Like, that's entirely plausible to me because, like, Rome would do stuff like that to keep their soldiers dedicated to the cause. So, and plus, especially the early Christian church, they had like a very high view of marriage.
Yeah.
Marriage. So they
Marriage.
wanted that to happen. What brings us together? No, so that part of the story seems very plausible to me that there is like a priest like helping to facilitate Christian marriages, um, which probably ended up bringing a lot of Roman soldiers into the church in the first place. Well, if I can't marry my sweetheart, out in public society because this law has just been passed down saying I can't, like, damn, that's really depressing. And then they find this option that will help them, that will allow them to be married to the person that they love. And it's a different religion entirely. So for a lot of Roman soldiers, that was probably their introduction into the Christian church, was like being dedicated to this idea of marrying the woman they love.
Mm-hmm.
And then discovering a group of people that were like, we can help you do that, but we're not pagans. So
Yeah.
What's that mean though? Like
gotta get with it.
what constituted being married back then?
Well, hopefully not getting beat with whips.
I mean, our current day is like it's under the law of the land, which would have been the Greeks. So I don't really understand that.
In the context of the church, when you think about it, marriage is and always has been a sacrament. Marriage was
right back,
never
gentlemen.
originally created by a sect. Gotcha. It was never created as a construct by a secular government. Marriage has always been a religious construct, a religious sacrament. So that's how it started, right? So you had pagan religions that had something that would constitute marriage, but the Jews and the Christians also had this construct. And Christianity has always taught just like this dramatically high view of marriage, because the Christian church from the beginning has taught that when a husband and a wife marry, they become one flesh and they are working with each other to draw closer to God, to deny more of themselves and draw closer to God. So like marriage is the way the church will phrase it is to aid in theosis and becoming more like the person God intended you to be. So they would never outlaw it because it has this glorious purpose. So they would have seen Claudius II's, ruling about outlawing marriage as not just detestable or not just like objectionable, but monstrous. Like they would have seen it as like a crime against human civilization. So they, of course, would have continued to keep facilitating marriage. That's kind of why I was saying it's entirely plausible to me that they were priests. And Valentine probably wasn't the only one who was, facilitating these marriages. He was just one of the ones that got caught, it seems like.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, but marriage has always been a religious thing. The state, the way we have it now, like most Americans see marriage as like, oh, it's just something Americans do for tax purposes. Like, no, that's the depressing way that the secular world teaches us to view marriage. But religiously, marriage is a beautiful thing. It is for our betterment. It's for us to work together to better each other and to draw closer to God. That's why it's like becoming one flesh. We make our decisions together. We're one flesh. We do everything together. It's a beautiful thing, not something to be depressed about. That's what the state turns it into, and that's why the United States made a horrible mistake continuing in the tradition of allowing the state to be dominant over the construct of marriage.
Yeah.
Always remain religious.
Wouldn't that be the mixing of church and state?
Well, honestly, I believe the church should rule the world. So
Well, that's creepy.
No
way.
Well, if the church is the bride of Christ, I couldn't think of a better group of people to be in charge.
Which church, though?
That's the debate we were having the last time I was on here.
Oh, okay.
My view.
I feel like Christ kind of said it was like the church was within yourself.
How? How do you draw that conclusion?
What do you mean? He said it.
How do you draw the conclusion that Christ said the church is within yourself? You never said
like the
that.
The kingdom is within yourself. You are the church.
No, the kingdom and the church, that's he didn't use those two words interchangeably. The
He didn't
church
say
always
that.
meant
He
the
didn't
body
say
of
that your
people that
body is
belong
the
to God.
temple.
Your body is the temple, but like that's a spiritual sense because there was also a physical temple. And the temple and church, the church, do you know where the word church comes from? Like where we get that word?
No.
It's a Greek word, ecclesia. It comes from two words, ek and kaleo. And I'm not a Greek scholar, like I said the last time I was on. This is just one of the ones I happen to know about. But ecclesia doesn't mean a building. It doesn't mean necessarily just a group of people. Ecclesia in Greek translation means the called forth ones or the ones who were called forth. It's talking about a body of people. So when that word ecclesia that gets translated as church in English is used in the New Testament, it's not talking about something that just exists inside an individual believer. When ecclesia is used in scripture, when church is used in scripture, it's talking about the called forth ones, a body of people, a body of believers. However, when I said that this body of believers, would be my preferred rule over society, I don't subscribe to the belief that Christianity should be spread by force like it has been, regrettably, in various instances in history. That's why I was saying, like, I really don't think a lot of the problems we're dealing with in the world today will be solved until Christ's second coming. Because when the church does, rule over the world, it's not going to be in subjecting other people. It's going to be because everybody who is left in the new heavens and the new earth willfully submits to God and accepts his rule as their king. Like that's the new heavens and the new earth. Like that's the eternity that we look forward to.
But isn't that what we talked about earlier? Like Thomas thought the kingdom was physical, and that's what messed him up. You just don't agree with that?
No, a bunch of the apostles were expecting a Messiah to show up in a military fashion to
Right.
boot Rome out of society. That's what they were expecting.
What I miss,
But
boys
Christ
and
didn't
girls,
show up as a military leader. Oh, a lot.
a lot.
But yeah,
Oh,
he didn't show up. He didn't show up as a military leader to subject everyone. But at the same time, in the eschaton, in the second coming, uh, when the new heavens and the new earth are ushered in, like there will be that final judgment, and his enemies will, the people who still reject him to the end, will be burned up in judgment, and all that will be left are those who have followed Christ.
But
So
that's what Judas
in
thought
the
was going to
end,
happen, right?
we're not
that's
talking
what they
about
thought was going to
Valentine's
happen
Day,
right
are
then.
we?
It led from one to the other.
It led from Valentine's
We
Day
talked
to
a lot about it.
weddings
Oh, okay.
and marriage, and then
From
Oh, never mind.
okay.
Not important.
Well, it sounded pretty important.
Yeah.
I've got some dire warnings from Revelations, and I was like, well, this ain't Valentine's conversation at all. So
We were talking about these marriages that Saint Valentine would conduct in secret with Roman soldiers, because the Christian church is always viewed. I'll give like the Spark Notes edition of what I was just talking about.
okay.
But the church has always viewed religion as a sacrament, as a man and a woman becoming one flesh, and they're together on everything forever after that. Like they have become one flesh. It's a religious sacrament. So when the Roman emperor outlawed that, the Christian church in Rome would have seen that as a monstrous attack against God's created order.
Yeah.
So of course the church would have never gone along with this ruling.
Right.
So it makes sense that priests within Roman society would have continued to facilitate weddings.
Which is why I was so
And
thrown off
Valentine-
with the whole Pope thing, like Pope canceling marriage. I was like, what? No, that can't be.
Yeah.
Right. So okay.
Yeah, at the time of Saint Valentine, there was a Roman bishop, but the idea of the papacy wasn't really, like, the idea of the papacy being the universal jurisdiction of the church. That wasn't a thing at this point in history. This was like late AD 200s.
Yeah, so I was just being an idiot and misunderstanding what I heard. But anywho, so
There is a lot of so and so the second and so the thirds in the papal line, though, so I could understand why you would have thought that at first.
yeah, well, it's okay. You can just call me an idiot, but I appreciate it. So
I refuse.
All right. So, are we done with the church conversation then? Have we moved on from
Yeah,
that and chased it down?
Yeah.
that was just a tangent
All
that we
right.
went on while you were gone.
Sweet. So, we're ready to return to the video then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. Here we go.
The winged matchmaker started out as the Roman god of love, inspired the image of cherubs for Christians, and is now a favorite of card makers and mass marketers. Our modern Valentine's Day, removed from its religious and pagan past, has evolved into one of the most celebrated holidays on the calendar. On average, Americans shower their loved ones with 180 million roses, red ones naturally, and almost 36 million heart-shaped boxes of candy, not to mention all those cards, dinners, and diamonds.
Sorry, can you pause?
All told,
Yeah.
That's cracking me up, man. You notice like the intense, like menacing, like EDM, like when I was explaining like the Christian origin of the holiday, and then as soon as it goes to like, but now removed from religion entirely, it's this Hallmark music, flowers and chocolate everywhere kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I know what you're doing, History Channel, doing slick, a bunch of secular bastards.
We ran into that before with the Halloween one. It was,
Yeah.
I remember that they were like, oh, the Romans were just trying to integrate culture, but the Christians, through conquest and
Bunch of
propaganda.
degens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry. The next video goes into deeper, darker things of it.
Oh, sweet. Well, let's get into that.
Yeah.
So, let's
Hey,
see.
Jen in the chat has been married for 33 years. Illuminati confirmed, boys.
Well, Illuminati aside, congratulations. So, all right.
Indeed. Very good. Many years. Many years to you.
She said she hopes to get laid later.
Well, there you go. In its proper context, too. Excellent. So, all right, let's see here. The dark origin and history of St. Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day. We all know it as a time to celebrate romance and love. But the origins of this festival of roses, chocolate, and Cupid are actually quite dark. In fact, bloody. So what exactly is the story behind this lovey-dovey holiday? We'll have to take a trip to ancient Rome. But before we get going, please like and subscribe.
No.
Yeah, before we get into the macabre stuff, let's like and subscribe, guys. History biography.
share.
Yeah, and share. History, biography, and mythology if you are so inclined, by the way.
Ancient Rome, a place of diverse, rich culture and history, inspired by the many gods, Jupiter.
You do realize this is another AI video, Trevor. We fell for this once already.
Yeah. If you want to skip this
What?
one, the next one basically says all the same stuff she does, but it's not AI.
Well, let's try to honor the work of a person. I mean, I guess somebody made the AI, but, you know. I feel
Yes.
cheated.
She just goes into the darker things of it. This
Okay.
guy didn't really go as dark as she did.
Okay, so the history of Valentine's Day of pagan. Are we going to hear more about whips and people being beat?
Probably.
That's going to be depressing.
That was kind of funny.
Sexist.
This one is the deepest dive I could find. So
All right. Here we go.
Let's dive deeply.
It's important that as we live out our days, we grow in knowledge. It's always a mistake to partake in customs and celebrations that we do not know the history of. Embracing traditions that we do not know the history of can often lead us in celebrating false deities and make us out to be hypocrites to what we truly believe. Knowledge is power, and regardless of what you choose to do,
Question for the Greek Orthodox. I'm going to go Romans 14 on this. What do you think? You think that's a thing? If we unwittingly worship a pagan holiday, it's like, God or something? Like we're falsely worshiping a god? I don't subscribe to that, but what do you guys think?
Like if you listen to Snoop Dogg, because he's the modern incarnation of Anubis, the dog-headed god of Egypt. If you listen to Snoop Dogg, you're worshiping Anubis.
Well, I don't listen to Snoop Dogg, so there's that. What about you, Jeremiah? I'm curious for your opinion.
As soon as he was talking about the connection between Snoop Dogg and Anubis, I just imagined like a archaeologist like in an ancient Egyptian tomb. He's like, and I heard a voice in the dark. I'm like, you need to be sipping on gin and juice. Ah!
I was
No,
sitting
but,
there thinking, do I touch that? Do I not touch that? Do I really want to chase that rabbit?
But there's an extent to which I agree that whenever it comes to participating in like modern holidays, you should know the origin of the holiday. You should know where the practices come from. But there's also part of me that, like on Halloween, for instance, we know that one side of the origin of Halloween comes from Catholicism, All Hallows Eve, and it was a celebration of saints in the church. But there's also a connection to Samhain, or some people pronounce it Samhain, and that's a very explicitly pagan festival that dealt with familiar spirits and ghouls, goblins, monsters, that kind of thing. All that being said, when I have like a group of little kids come to my door and they're dressed up in cute little costumes on Halloween night, and they say trick or treat, and I give them a handful of Tootsie Rolls, and my wife and I watch them walk off, like, I don't think there's anything like any kind of pagan worship in that. Like, I don't think giving a kid a dum-dum and saying like, oh, you're dressed up like Buzz Lightyear. Like, I don't think there's like a demon sitting in the corner going like, like,
Yeah.
that doesn't check out to me. But
one could argue that you are tempting those children to the demon gluttony.
Through candy?
Yeah.
But you could say that with giving them food in general too.
Yeah, I mean,
gluttony doesn't just have to do with candy; it has to do with food. So, like, if I give a kid a sandwich, but he looks well fed,
the candy's not because they're hungry. The candy's because it's an oral tradition, which is, I mean, the basic synopsis of what we're saying. It's an oral tradition or a ritual that we're following because it's a tradition or ritual, and so a demon or whatever can use that, for
So the part of Halloween, like, I know I'm zeroing in on a particular holiday. It's the same thing with a lot of holidays. It's just a lot of American holidays are very modern. Some of them come from modern origins. But with Halloween in particular, the dark side of that could be like the glorification of death that, even I've been guilty of to an extent. Like, for like as far back as I can remember, every October, like when the AMC does the horror movie marathons and stuff like that, like I was all over that, and maybe I shouldn't be, because perhaps like that, macabre kind of aspect is wrong-headed, and we shouldn't be engaging with that.
If that's the case, I am in real trouble, because I've got an entire 6-book literary series that's all monsters and horror stuff. I might be in a little bit of trouble if we're not supposed to focus on the macabre.
The thing is, like, you can make like horror and scary stories that have a redemptive aspect and like a good lesson, some kind of good moral. Like, you can reap something good out of that. But stuff that's like horrifying for the sake of being horrifying, we do on Halloween, like the Michael Myers anthology.
Oh yeah,
like
all
all of those
slasher
movies
films and stuff. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, those movies never have a good ending. It's always something horrible. There's no redeeming aspect of it. Like, sometimes there's interesting elements about like what makes a human, like the last like 3 Halloween movies that came out talked a lot about like what made somebody like actually evil and where does evil come from, and it was an interesting philosophical conversation that you get to have if you really think about it.
Yeah,
like Jay Dyer level analysis. But stuff that's just gory and like disfiguring the image of God by like cutting somebody to pieces or like doing all these horrible things to them in these movies that people get really into on Halloween, I could definitely see how that could like open up channels for demonic activity in somebody's life.
Yeah, it lowers your vibration, man.
Yeah, there is a glorification of evil that needs to be avoided.
Yeah, like one thing that we know from like loads of accounts, like loads of modern accounts of people becoming, possessed, or not even possessed, but like oppressed by demons. a common factor among a lot of them is that they read horror novels or they watched horror movies where they engaged in occult activities that they didn't know were occult, like Ouija boards and stuff like that. So these things that we see as like fun kind of just like seasonal activities, like horror movies that just like don't have any redeeming aspect to them, or occult activities that we think are just like fun Hasbro board games. They could actually be opening up channels for the demonic.
Well, let me tie
sure.
this.
But,
let me tie this into Valentine's Day. Does Valentine's Day tempt people into lust?
Oh
Yes.
at modern,
Absolutely.
yeah,
So should we celebrate it?
the modern iteration for sure.
Yeah,
Probably not.
probably not.
I
Interesting.
would vote taking it. I would vote taking it back to like a church holiday. Obviously, in our secular modern world, people aren't going to be super interested in a church holiday, but I think the saintly origin of the holiday, like what Saint Valentine, according to church tradition, is attested to have done with his life, I think that's an incredibly honorable thing, and I think it would behoove all of us to remember like valiant men like that in world history that did great things for people.
Mm-hmm.
So if we adjusted it to that, that would be great. But like I said, modern world, I don't think they'd be super duper interested in that. They'd rather have their really goofy Hallmark movies that come out every year.
Those are the worst.
And chocolates and
Heck, and
they
Hallmark
suck.
Christmas counts as Valentine's Day too, and Hallmark every holiday is Valentine's Day. So
Yeah,
I hate that
there's
channel.
always some chick who owns like a snow globe shop, and like some like corporate dude that's like super greedy and a workaholic comes into town like, I don't have time to love you. I'm doing business over the phone.
Yeah. Don't forget that midway low point where she's like, I can't believe you did that thing. That's an obvious misunderstanding. I'm out of here. But I love you. So. Okay.
It's always a businessman in a small town somebody. That's the line.
It's the same movie over and over again. Okay, so let me posit a question. We're just spitballing here. I'm not making a definitive doctrinal statement or even a theological opinion. I am throwing this on the board to see what y'all think. What if maybe we should celebrate these holidays? Because obviously there's an equivalent. Like with Halloween, there was like a Christian version of that at one point. And then with St. Valentine's Day, obviously the theme is marriage. So to cease worshiping them, celebrating them, I've already baited my own premise, celebrating them, what if that's seeding ground? Like what if we're giving those holidays to the secular culture by refusing to celebrate them? And go.
Yeah, by refusing to celebrate them without replacing them to something else is like almost, it sounds heavy, but it's almost nihilist behavior to just be like, well, it used to be this thing that was honorable, but now it's not, so let's give up on it. I think if we're going to take away something, pagan or something degenerate from society, that leaves a vacuum which should be filled with something honorable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I was saying a minute ago with Valentine's Day in particular, we take away the lust, we take away all the OF, 304s on the internet,
Mm-hmm.
and we replace that with honoring, a great man who did a great thing, helping to facilitate true love, between a man and a woman. Like helping them to become married to each other in a state that wouldn't really allow them to. Like that sounds like the subject matter of a romance novel. It really does. There's plenty of romance in that by itself. So I think the true story, specifically Valentine's Day, is the best story. We should return to that.
Well, there you go. You guys had
My favorite
mischievous
is
smiles there
colostrum.
for a sec. Colostrum.
Colostrum.
It's my favorite
Anyway,
holiday.
is that your? It's a holiday now, or is that just shorthand for Christmas?
Colostrum Santa Day.
Merry
whatever.
colostrum.
Merry
To all a good night.
Get your nutrients.
Yeah, get your nutrients.
Let the
guys.
nutrients travel up your spine.
I don't know what that means.
Santa
You
Claus.
say these things, and I'm like, what are you talking about? So you guys had mischievous laughs. What's going on? Like you guys are
Yeah,
like a bunch of middle schoolers. What's happening?
Jen said, you know the one horror movie that plugs my nerves? I guess My Bloody Valentines. She said nothing special about any of the rest of them. I never seen The Walking Dead, but when it came out, I rolled my eyes. And so I was like, The Walking Dead is a great show, and Cody was like, no, it's not.
You guys weren't even having a conversation related to this. I don't even know why I try. Good night. It's like, hey, we're talking about whether or not we should keep celebrating holidays to save the culture. We're talking about The Walking Dead. I'm like, oh, great. That's good.
I can do both.
Yeah, you can do both. You can multitask, and you can talk about colostrum
But
too.
Well, you do bring up something which could be an entire podcast worth of material in and of itself. Like, and not just with holidays, but with a lot of other cultural aspects too. Like, do we just give up because these things that used to be great have been turned into shite,
Mm-hmm.
or do we bring things back to the way they were? There sort of has to be this attitude which is kind of frowned upon these days because people see it as, colonialist, imperialist, supremacist, whatever. But there has to be an attitude that comes from the people who built Western society to be like, what made this great? Oh, yeah, it's these things. It's faith. It's the family. Like,
Yeah.
we need to take it back and not just give it up to the degens.
Yeah.
Like that, there needs, like I was talking earlier about how despondent, or how tempted to be despondent I can get when I see the corruption in our government. I talk like that because the seriousness, like the gravity of the matter deserves like that serious tone. But by no means should that be interpreted as me saying like, I give up, everything sucks, it's the worst.
Mm-hmm.
I say things the way that I say them in regards to all of that to kind of like evoke something in the people who hear me out.
Yeah.
Like, we need to take things back. Like, it has to be a fight. Don't go silent into that cold night. Like, you have to do something. Like, look at society the way that it has been for the past few years. It really seemed like at a few points that we were in our death throes. It really did.
Yeah.
Now I'm not so sure because there seems to be a little bit of a revival. But for a while, when I was looking at the craziness, I was like, it really seems like we're like in our final moments here. And it was starting to freak me out a little bit. But that's what inspires me so much about what's happening now. It's not vested in any one person. It's not vested in Trump or Mike Benz or any of the people that are doing the work, but in the collective that is starting to wake up and do something about the dire situation they found themselves in.
Mm-hmm.
It happens with holidays, happens with all manner of cultural customs. It happens with faith. That's why even non-Christian, like secular people who are waking up are starting to recognize like the importance of the church in America. Like there has, like Richard Dawkins, he's not an American, but he's still a Westerner. Even he has woken up and said, I'm not a Christian, but I'm a cultural Christian.
Yeah.
Because I have recognized like the importance. Like I have a book right now on my desk by an atheist scholar named Tom Holland. Wrote an entire book
Spider-Man?
about the influence.
Close.
No, not the Tom Holland Spider-Man. Yeah. Scholar Tom Holland wrote an entire book called Dominion about the influence of Christianity on the world. And he's one of those atheists that came to the conclusion after his historical deep dive, like we need faith. We need this rootedness. Even if you don't believe it, it's necessary. Like we got to win.
Psychologically. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. We got to take things back. We can't let it fall to like foundationless relativism because that just leads to disaster.
So, boys and girls, sign that Valentine's Day card. Take that rejection from your lover like a man or woman.
Yeah,
Endure
find
the
DJ
hardship.
and send a Valentine's Day card.
Jen said we don't need all the holidays. Like
Not
we
all
don't.
of them.
That's an
We
interesting
don't need a
question. Do
rabbit.
we? That is an interesting question. Do we need holidays?
No, they keep letting, like, my kids have off school on Monday for President's Day.
Well, see,
Like,
that's just completely
who
utilitarian.
cares? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
We
if
could
you were a
celebrate
child,
Jimmy
you'd
Carter
care a
giving
lot.
up the Panama Canal.
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
Yeah,
know.
so
just
that's
keep adding
something that
it's
really
stupid.
Yeah, like government holidays really blow my mind because we'll reject the religious traditions that led to holidays like Christmas, like All Hallows Eve, like Valentine's Day. We'll say religion, we're done with that. But a day honoring our federal overlords, just kids. You know?
I am
Let's let the kids
really
off of school, have a barbecue.
Yeah.
I have a real emotional attachment to National Pretzel Day. I'll tell you what. So
Oh, Stanley from The Office. Pretzel Day.
no, I will say there is one holiday that I think is of the utmost importance and should be celebrated at all costs, and is dwindling. That's Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving's great.
People need a day to sit down, quit complaining about all the stuff they don't have, and to be thankful for something. And you got to make people sit their butts down and take the time to do it. And food is great bait. So I say
Yeah.
we should celebrate
Gratitude
Thanksgiving.
is important.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah,
Yeah, every time
Thanksgiving is definitely one of the wholesome ones.
every time my mom wants us to go around the table and be thankful for what we are thankful for, I'm like, I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I hate it, but it's good for
I
you.
get. Yeah, it seems cringy when it's happening, but it's the kind of thing that like 10, 15, 20 years from now, when you remember, like if that memory pops back into your head, like, the last big Thanksgiving where we were all together, like I should have said this, I should have said that, because like it makes you cringe to like do like that kind of hallmarky stuff, like, so guys, what are you thankful for? But it's valuable,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because there's a lot to be thankful for. Like if you assess your life without this BS, kind of like self-deprecating, like nihilist lens, like you can find a million things to be super thankful about.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Like that's what I have to
100%.
remember with like, when so much was going wrong, especially while I was still in Tulsa. Like we almost lost our daughter, the sale of our house almost fell through, all these terrible things were happening. And it just felt like at some points, like there's just nothing to be thankful for. It just seems like we're in this huge mess right now. That's how it seemed like I should have felt. But how I ended up feeling like when all of that was happening was realizing he's really there. He's really there, isn't he? Because somehow when all of that was happening, when my daughter almost died, when we almost lost the sale of our house, when we almost went bankrupt and lost everything, we were still provided for. Things lined up at the perfect time in the perfect places. Providence took care of us. I had something to be thankful for. So now every time I get asked that question, I fight the cringe. I fight the cringe so hard. I want to cringe right now, but I'm not going to. I am thankful for everything.
Yeah.
God bless. Like there's so much to be thankful for. Absolutely.
Yeah. He always
Thanksgiving is
provides.
one of my favorite holidays for that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Jen asks, do we need St. Patrick's Day or do we keep that one? I know it's an
Nah,
Irish.
people use it as an excuse to drink.
Yeah, but the origin of that is pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Origin of
Sure.
St. Patty's Day is pretty great.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I know I'm taking up a lot of, like I'm talking a lot, so
No, you're
just
good.
stop me if I
You
talk.
good?
Yeah. Shut up, man.
That's why you're here.
I will say on St. Patrick's Day, that's
but,
the day my wife and I got married, so I do kind of need that one.
Brushing.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, that adds to it, man. That's awesome. But yeah, St. Pat's Day, that a lot of people, especially like neo-pagans, will look at that and be like, oh, it was peaceful, hippy-dippy pagans being driven out of Ireland by the imperialist Christians. Like, no. These were not pagans sitting in their little sewing circles or weaving baskets, and then the colonialists showed up and ruined everything. These were people who were committing vile acts of human sacrifice, sexual immorality, defiling the land with their degeneracy. And then St. Patrick showed up, just like the Spanish conquistadors did in the Americas, and went, sorry, the human sacrifices will stop. Like he was part of that wave. And he didn't just bring domination and conquest to Ireland. He didn't drive out paganism and leave nothing in its wake. He brought Christ with him. Let me you guys talk for a second, but there's a particular quote from St. Patrick that I want to read about his motivation for doing everything. It's just beautiful. I think you guys would like it.
Jen said Leif Erikson Day or something like that.
Happily fancy
Leif
day.
Erikson
Dinga
Day.
dinga durgan.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
Look at me,
that's
wooden
the
shoes.
first. Yeah, that's the first Northman to make it to the Americas, I believe, and he converted to Christianity. He was the first Norse pagan convert to Christianity.
Interesting. Well, how
Oh,
about?
but what's up?
Oh, I was gonna say. Well, how about we suggest this? How about if we maybe correlate these holidays with ideals? So instead of lust, we can be more focusing on marriage. I don't know what the ideal for Halloween would be, but we could think of something.
Lustful marriage.
Lustful
The
marriage.
original ideal for Halloween was to just uh, honor, Christian heroes. Like All Hallows Eve, that was the original idea of the holiday from the Christian perspective. Is like this is the day that we use to honor like valiant Christian heroes in
Well,
our
there you
history.
go. Well, there you go. Remembering the past on Halloween, gratitude for Thanksgiving, generosity for Christmas. Yeah, make it work. That's the way it used to be. I suspect
But
that's
then,
the way it used to be. And then the corporations were like, we got to get these people to buy stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, like with Saint Patrick in particular, that quote I wanted to read. Like I said, he didn't just bring desolation, violence, conquest to Ireland. Like he didn't bring any of that at all. Really, that came with their own internal wars, like later in history. But what Christ brought, or what Saint Patrick brought to Ireland was Christ. Like he wanted to evangelize with love because he truly thought that was the only chance of salvation for the world. But his quote, what he's most famous for quoting, is the prayer that's been recorded and carried in both the Western and Eastern Christian traditions. But he starts with Christ with me, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ in me, Christ beneath me, Christ above me, Christ on my right, on my left, Christ where I lie, where I sit, where I rise, in the heart of everyone who thinks of me, Christ in the mouth of everyone who speaks to me, Christ in every eye that sees me, Christ in every ear that hears me. Salvation is of the Lord, salvation is of the Christ. May your salvation, Lord, ever be with us. So his whole attitude was, I'm going to bring Christ to people, but he also recognized that scripture we were talking about the last time we were all on together, where when you clothe the naked, feed the hungry, you take care of these people, you are serving God. You are serving Christ directly by doing that. So he very much had that attitude. So when he showed up to drive the snakes out of Ireland, yes, paganism was driven out of Ireland, but it was by a superior faith, by a superior, religion, like something that saw the value and inherent dignity in the human being. So, like, for instance, like I try to meditate on that fact when St. Patrick's Day comes around, and honestly, like I fail at it. It's not like I'm just like prostrate in prayer all day on St. Patrick's Day. Like I'm not gonna make myself out to be like massive pietist like that, but try to carve out like at least a couple minutes on these holidays that originated with like Christian saints. Like they did some amazing things. Saint Valentine did something amazing. St. Patrick did something amazing. All Hallows Eve used to be about honoring Christian saints. Like a bunch of these holidays that we celebrate in the West should be remembered for what they used to be and recovered because they've just been bastardized, ruined by the degens.
there you go.
And by us, we participate in it. So a lot of it's on us for tacitly participating in them, one way or the other.
Well, there you go. So resist by getting rejected by your girlfriend on Valentine's Day. So, all right.
Just the crying soy jack meme.
I'm not regressing back to high school at all. So, boys, it has been 3 hours and 43 minutes.
Dang, we're killing it.
I'll leave it up to you. You want to make it for 4 or you want to call it
Let's,
good?
Let's before we end, I just wanted to go ahead and play that last video I sent you. It's only 1 minute.
Last video. Okay, here we go.
It's the little kids version.
Oh, that's
Oh, good.
gonna
I
be
might
terrifying.
understand it.
Oh,
This
you
is-
said little kids version, and then I saw a DC plane crash. I was like, wait, hold on.
That
I
was
have a
our
lot of
next topic.
tabs.
was our next topic. We got past this one.
No,
but it's
no.
getting late.
So this is the one that he's referring to. All right.
This
So
is
why
what
do
we're
we
teaching
celebrate
our-
Valentine's Day?
What?
This is basically what we're teaching our kids.
Okay.
And how did it start? It's believed that Valentine's Day was started in Rome during the reign of Emperor Claudius II. Claudius made weddings against the law. Believing this was unjust, a defiant Roman priest named Bishop Valentine would secretly marry couples in his church. Claudius found out, and Valentine was sent to jail. His execution was set for February 14th. The jailer's daughter would bring Valentine his food, and soon they fell in love. The night before his death, Valentine wrote the jailer's daughter a love letter, and he signed it, Your Valentine. Ever since, February 14th has been a day that we celebrate love, and we show the people in our lives just how much we adore and appreciate them.
I have a question.
Well, it's pretty condensed, but I guess the point's across.
Extremely.
There you go.
So, didn't Rome have a 10-month calendar?
I have
don't
no
know.
idea.
Not sure. I couldn't speak to that.
Greg might know, but I
I
don't
mean, I'm
know.
pretty sure they did. How they just gonna say February 14th?
Well, that's what I was saying. That's what I was trying to get at is, we teach. This is what I would have learned in school.
Right. I get what you're like taking
So
from it, but yeah.
the not having the deeper context and deeper meanings, which is what the rest of the other video is going to go into. But
Yeah.
Excuse me.
as far as Rome having a different calendar, I'm sure they did.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. So there's the condensed version, and I think we've talked about whether or not it's okay to celebrate Valentine's Day or these holidays in general. We've chased just about everything I could think of, unless somebody else has got another thought.
No.
No?
No,
don't think so.
just remember valiant, men in history who did amazing things. So a lot of them are responsible for our culture, and we can still have that. We can still revive that, even if we never have that back in society again, where everybody together recognizes the value behind these holidays for what they're truly supposed to be. We can still have, our little pockets of resistance, where we have groups of people who spread the message like, hey, this is the history behind this holiday. This is why it matters that we don't just give up on it. There could still be a movement that can at least wake up a group, wake up, some people to the value of history.
Yeah.
And like why we have these. They're not just like hallmarky bullcrap throwaway holidays. They matter. Holiday, holy day. Like it's marked as a holy day because something amazing happened that we're commemorating on this day.
Yeah.
All
We should
right.
remember that. That's my parting thought.
Sweet. Well, with all that being said, I think we're going to call it a night. And this is the end of the live stream.
Yep.
So you
If
can
you're
go
lucky.
home now.
It's getting late.
Yeah, it is.
15. This might be our
Yeah,
latest stream.
Yeah, I think it's the longest one I've ever had. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, does Jen have any
Question.
final thoughts?
Every month,
Chad.
the 28, 29 days, I remember seeing it talked about on YouTube somewhere.
Hmm.
She's like, I'm all over
Yeah,
this
she
thing. I
said
have
there was
no
a
idea.
13th. There could have been a 13-month calendar at some point, but there also could be a 10-month if they just add more days.
Ah,
I think it's changed throughout history. But
gotcha. Okay.
Maybe we could do an
Yeah, I'm
episode
seeing
on.
here,
Yeah,
Cody.
10-month was
Cody's
probably
right.
33
It's
days.
10 months.
All right.
Is that 33 days in every month?
I don't know.
13.
What I'm seeing here, I asked the
I have
good
no
old
idea.
crank dat GPT. It's a 10-month calendar, 304 days overall. That was the early Roman calendar.
Ah, very
That's pretty
interesting.
cool.
Yeah, circa 8th century BC.
Gotcha. Very nice. Well,
The
now
year
that-
started in March.
there you go.
Huh. So there was no February.
What We've been lied
No
to.
January, no February.
My world is falling apart all over again.
We'll
All
have
right.
to do a deep
Yeah.
dive into
In
calendars.
fairness,
at
though,
some
Yeah.
the
point.
day. Yeah, in fairness, though, like St. Valentine's is probably just adjusted to the best of our knowledge, like adapted to our calendar.
Yeah.
Like this is
Yeah.
the point in the year, like the
Yeah.
lunar cycle that it probably fell on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. Well, with all that wonderful stuff said, guys, thank you so much for watching.
We appreciate you.
Yes, we appreciate you. And remember, Hallmark means hell. Good night, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Faith, Fiction, and Folklore. If you did, we would love it if you would subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Rumble. We can also be found on X, Instagram, and Facebook. And we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Thank you again very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.